Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Yasin Karali from IB Community College That. I'm making this video for my students of metric class. The topic that I have selected for today's video is formal letter writing, and I have taken an example from past paper 2018 of our examination and board. These books have helped me a lot in understanding the formal letter writing, and these books are easily available on the internet. Let's begin with the topic today. The topic that I have selected for this video is formal letter writing, and in order to explain the formal letter writing and how to write down a formal letter, I have taken an example from the past paper 2018 of Aga Khan board examination. These books have helped me a lot in understanding the formal letter and how to write down a formal letter. You can also search them on the internet. These are easily available. Let's go ahead. In order to understand the formal letter clearly, we should also know what's the difference between the formal letter and an informal letter. Remember one thing, formal letter is very much official and business type of letter. It is very much rigid and it always follows the rules and regulations in the terms of language, in the terms of manner, whereas the informal letter is quite free type of writing letter, free type of letter. It does not bound you with the rules and regulations of language, manner, tone, or grammar. It does not make you obedient to any rule or regulation. The formal letters are sent to organizations, government departments, shareholders, somebody having higher position or authority, or status like news editor, manager, director, CEO. Whereas on the other hand, informal letters are always written to friends, parents, siblings, cousins, closer ones, and relatives. What's the purpose of writing the formal letter? The purpose of writing a formal letter is to make complaints, requests, inquiries, orders. In other words, we write down formal letter sometimes to submit a report or progress to higher authority. We write a formal letter to make a complaint to the higher authority. For example, a student is supposed to write a formal letter in order to complain to the principal, in order to complain to the headmaster, in order to complain to the teacher against another student. The informal letter is written to somebody who is really closer to us, whom we know personally. We are very much closer and near to that person as well. Like our parents, we know our parents very well, our parents know us very well. Like our friends, like our cousins or siblings. The purpose of writing the informal letter is not to make a complaint or inquiry. It is not to submit a sort of progress or report to somebody. Rather, it is quite friendly letter. In other words, we can say the purpose of writing an informal letter is to express your feelings, to congratulate somebody, to show your gratitude, to encourage somebody, to invite your friend in your wedding or your brother's wedding, or to call for having a get-together with the friends. Another one difference between the formal letter and an informal letter is the difference in the tone. The tone in the formal letter is full of respect, and it uses the formal words and sentences to create a nice impression on the recipient or the receiver of the letter, whereas in the informal letter, the tone is very much casual. It is quite friendly, it is quite jolly, it is quite irregular, it is quite free expressive type of tone. It is quite jocund, it is quite informal. In other words, the tone in the formal letter is full of respect. Remember one thing, because this is a sort of official letter, it is more like a business type of letter, so you don't have to show your friendly emotions or expressions to that person or receiver of the letter. Rather, you have to follow some rules and regulations, ethics and manners in the language and in the grammar. Another one is in the informal letter, the words we use are colloquial or slang. I'll give you the examples in the next slide. The colloquial words are everyday words or natural words or non-literary words. They are hardly found in the official matters. And slang language or slang words means the words that we cannot use in the business type of letters, the words that we cannot use in the formal type of letters, the words that we cannot use in the official type of letters. We don't use these taboo type of words before somebody who deserves a huge respect and reverence. The formal letter follows a set format. That means in Aga Khan board, the block format is recommended. So the formal letter is quite fixed one. It is quite rigid one. It is quite already designed. In Aga Khan board, for the informal letter, we use block format. Another one difference is formal letters can be considered freestyle swimming, where you are free to write in style and tone as you wish. Another difference is in the format of the letter writing. The formal informal letter always follows a sort of set format. It always follows a sort of designed format. In Arahan board, we are instructed to write down the formal letter and informal letter in the block format, that is full block or complete close format. Otherwise, most of the books say that we don't have a particularly designed format for the informal letter. Okay? The informal letters are considered freestyle swimming type of writing. You are free to write anything in any style, in any tone, because you're writing to somebody who's also to you, who is friendly with you. But Arahan board also recommends block format for the informal letter writing. In the formal letter, you write down at the signing of yours truly or yours faithfully. But in the informal letter, you write your love, your buddy, your bosom friend, your kiddie. This is the difference that I have given here, the slang language and the colloquial language, or slang words or the colloquial words. Slang words are actually the words that are hardly used by common people. These are used by a particular group of people, like teenagers. And the colloquial language is used by common people in everyday life. The slang vocabulary is created by the users, thus it is most likely to change with the time, whereas the colloquial vocabulary lasts for the longer time. Second difference between the slang language or the colloquial language, slang words or the colloquial words, is that the slang words are used for the shorter time. For example, after the teenage, people don't use these type of taboo words, but the colloquial words commonly remain for the longer time in our society. And a third difference is that slang language is used by certain groups such as teenagers, and colloquial language is used by people in daily speech. Here are the examples of the colloquial language. Look at this. At the place of because, we use girls. At the place of going to, we use gonna. Rather than using how are you doing, we use what's up. Rather than using family, we just use fam. Rather than using yes, we say yeah, yup. We use I don't know, no, nah, no, whatever. You can decide. I don't have a preference. And these are the examples of slang language. You can pause the video and watch the words. Let's go ahead. Now the format of formal letter writing in AKUEB papers of SSC-II, SSC Part 2. This format is recommended in Arahan board. Format recommended by AKUEB is block format. This blocked format is also called the full block or the complete block. Every component of letter in block format starts from the left margin of page or paper. Whatever part of the letter you write, that should start from the very left margin. What are the important parts of the paper? Look at this. There are the two addresses, date in between two addresses, and then we have subject. Subject in Arahan board is optional. Greetings. The greeting part is also called salutation part. Another part is the opening paragraph or introductory paragraph. Another part is the central body. The central body all consists of mainly 3 or 4 paragraphs. Another one, and then we have got another one part is signaling end, and the next one is complimentary close. And the last part of the formal letter writing is signature. Remember one thing, the block format is recommended by Arahan board, and in the block format we write every part from the left margin. I have explained all these parts in detail here. Number first is addresses. First address always belongs to the student. In other words, first address belongs to the writer. Since in examinations the student is the writer, so a student has to write down his own address. Remember, the addresses that we write down in the examination are not real addresses. A student should not write the real name and the real address. Second address belongs to the person who is going to receive our letter, or who is going to receive your letter, also known as receiver of the letter or recipient of the letter. And the date is written in between two addresses, the date of English paper or the date on which you are writing the letter. Now this part is also important. Greetings is also known as salutation. Greetings to the person who would read our letter. So we start our letter with the greetings. If you know the person, or if you know the name of the person you're writing to, begin with Dear Mr. Jones, Dear Mrs. Jones to the married woman, Dear Miss Jones to a woman. Dear Miss is actually not used frequently. If you don't know the name of the person you're writing to, begin with Dear Sir if the gender is known to you, if he's known to you by gender. Dear Madam if she's known to you by gender. If you don't know the gender of person, you would write Dear Sir or Madam, Dear Sir oblique Madam. The second part is the opening paragraph, also called introductory paragraph. This paragraph contains a clear statement of your reason for writing. Why are you writing this letter? What made you to write this letter? What compelled you to write this letter? In what reference are you writing this letter? The third part is the body of the letter. The body of the letter consists of about 1 to 3 paragraphs. Very rarely it would contain 4 paragraphs. The body contains all the relevant information. Central body of the letter would contain all the relevant and appropriate information. The next part is signaling the end, not recommended in Arahan board. Fifth part, or the next part, is the closing. This phrase puts an end to the letter. If you know the name of the person person you're writing to, end with yours sincerely. If you don't know the name of the person you're writing to, end with yours faithfully. Of course, apart from these two words, yours sincerely and yours faithfully, you can also write your grateful, your thankful, your obedient. Signature. Signature is actually the name of the person. The signature is actually the name of the writer. This is the format I've taken from the internet. This is actually the blocked format of letter writing. As we have already discussed that everything starts from the left margin. Two addresses are there that is missing here, and then salutation part, opening paragraph, central body, the conclusion, and then complimentary close, and then your signature. Another one sample letter that I have taken is in the block format, and this letter consists of two addresses: the first address of the writer, second address of the receiver, and in between these two addresses there is a date given here. Then the letter starts with the salutation or the greeting, and then the opening paragraph or the introductory paragraph, the central body of the letter, and then the conclusion. Here we have got signature and your name. I have taken this example from the Aga Khan Board past paper 2018, and this example is related with the formal letter writing. Let's read the question, what the question says. These are the instructions given in the e-marking of the Aga Khan Board. You can pause the video and read the instructions. These instructions are really important for the student and the teacher as well. Let's read the question. The question is, you study in a school where teachers' turnover rate is very high. During the past 6 months, 4 teachers have left and have been replaced by new teachers. Your classmates have mixed feelings about this issue. However, you feel that your studies have been negatively impacted by this high turnover of teachers. This is the background. From you up to teachers, we call this situation, background, situation, context of the question. Write a letter to your school principal highlighting this issue. In your letter, discuss the following. Now, this is the direction given there. What we are supposed to write, or what kind of information we are supposed to put in the paper. That is how change of teachers impacted your studies. Number 1. Number 2 is what should be done to make teachers stay. Number 3, how it would benefit the students. See, the demands have already been given into the question. You just have to read the demands and convert these demands into your paper with your relevant examples and reasons. Number 1 is how change of teachers impacted your studies. The high turnover rate of the teachers and being replaced by the new teachers actually has a negative impact on your studies. What kind of negative impacts are there? You have to mention here. And what should be done, the word should actually is used mostly for the advice or suggestion. So you are supposed to suggest here what steps, measures, or solutions are there in your mind with reasonable justification, how it will benefit the students. These are further instructions. You can pause the video and read these instructions. This will help you a lot. I have taken both better responses and weaker responses from the e-marking of 2018 past paper. The very beginning of the letter, as I have already discussed, that 2 addresses are written. The first address belongs to the student, second address belongs to the person you are writing to. In between these 2 addresses, you are supposed to write the date of the letter. The first address is a student's address. That address is not real address. Remember one thing, a student is not supposed to reveal his or her real address or real name. Then we've got the date of writing this letter, examination date you can write. Then second address is recipient's address, the person who is going to receive your letter. That is also not the real address. You can see here that AB is not the name of the student. XY is school. XY is never ever the name of the school. PQ is not the name of the road. Of course, the city is mentioned here. The principal designation. This is the designation, because in the question you were supposed to write, you are already told to write a letter to your school principal. So here the designation is important. You have to write down the designation of the person, that is principal. If it was the news editor, you would write the news editor. If it was the manager, you would write the manager. If it is the manager there in the question, then you would write manager. That address, the address is not real. Subject is optional in our handbook. If you are writing it, it would enhance the beauty of your letter. Otherwise, it's not so much important, not recommended by the Aga Khan Board particularly. What is the subject? Subject provides a clue to the reader about issue or topic the letter is written on or about. Look at this one. What is said? Subject, negative impact of high turnover of teachers. See, let's go back to the question. Here in the question, the first line in contact is already high turnover rate of the teachers and negatively impacted by this high turnover of the teachers. These 2 lines actually give you a clear clue to write down the subject. So subject is actually a clue that what you are going to discuss in this later. Then we have got this first paragraph. This is the first paragraph. First paragraph, as we have already discussed, that it mentions the clear statement of the purpose you are writing this letter. It says what made you to write this letter, what compels you to write this letter. So first paragraph, let's read it. I, AB, name of the student, not real, fake name of the student or nickname of the student. I, AB, a student of class matric, is writing this letter to highlight the issue of turnover of teachers and its negative impact on the student. This is what made you to write down this letter. The very first sentence actually tells the purpose of writing this letter. As we have already discussed in the previous slides, the first paragraph is introductory paragraph, and in that introductory paragraph you have to write down a clear statement of the purpose of writing this letter. You have to introduce why you are writing this letter, why this person is writing this letter. He has already mentioned it, or she has already mentioned, AB has already mentioned this, that this student is writing this letter to highlight the issue of turnover of teachers and its negative impact on the student. I would like to discuss this matter with you, as due to this issue the studies of the students is being affected. See again the clarification, the same first paragraph that we discussed in the previous slide. This is the second paragraph. We now, from this second paragraph up to the last paragraph, that comes into the central body of the letter writing. Let's read it. Not every teacher's way of teaching suits children. Where students get comfortable with the teachers, then only they can study and concentrate properly. Most importantly, the time taken during the replacement of the teachers has an adverse effect on the students. They miss their classes, and in the end their course doesn't get completed. The teacher arranges extra classes on the 11th, has to complete the course, which increases pressure on the students. The way of teaching for every teacher is not same, and due to the students face problems being taught one subject in 4 different ways. Second paragraph, look at this in the second. See, in these points, the second point mentions that what should be done to make teachers stay. First point mentions that how change of teachers impacted your study. As we have already gone through the question, and the last 3 points given into the question were how change of teachers impacted your studies. Now here, this entire paragraph actually deals with how change of teachers impacted your studies or students' studies. Let's read from the very beginning. It says, not every teacher's way of teaching suits the children. When the students get comfortable with the teachers, then only they can study and concentrate. Again, developing a background justification properly. Most importantly, the time taken during the replacement of the teachers. Not every teacher's way of teaching suits the children. When the students get comfortable with the teacher, then only they can study and concentrate properly. This is giving a sort of claim, a thesis statement. The first sentence in the second paragraph is actually a thesis statement. It actually provides a claim from your side. Now this thesis statement is actually supported with the relevant and appropriate examples or proper supporting ideas. It says these supporting ideas, most importantly, the time taken during the replacement of the teachers has an adverse effect on the students. Again, one justification. They missed their classes, and in the end their course doesn't get completed. Second justification, the teacher argues extra classes on the 11th has to complete the course, which increases pressure on students. Third justification, the way of teaching for every teacher is not the same, and due to this students face problems being taught one subject in 4 different ways. Fourth justification, these 4 ideas, these 4 arguments, these 4 examples, or these 4 reasons are actually the part of supporting ideas. These 4 reasons are actually the supporting ideas. They support the first claim maintained by the student. The claim was, not every teacher's way of teaching suits the children. When the student get comfortable with the teachers, then only they can study and concentrate properly. So this claim was supported with all these relevant and appropriate examples or reasons. Now see, I have just given this a short note. Second, third and fourth paragraph contain all the information about the issue that is demanded in the question. As we know that in the question, last 3 points that were discussed, that were all about that information. Actually these last 3 points would lead the student to collect or to make all the information relevant to the question. Actually these all 3 points in the question given were pointing to, so these 3 paragraphs would have all the information related with the given points in the. Let's go ahead. The third paragraph is, it starts with it, to make teachers stay for long, the student management should fulfill some of their demands and pay them. This is just a claim. This is just a sort of a statement for what they deserve, and they should be judged by the talent but not by their backgrounds or appearances, as we should never judge a book by its cover. Now justification. It also benefits the students as they become comfortable with the specific teacher and take interest in learning and enjoy their studies, but not thinking of it is a big pressure. The course gets complete on time and students do not have to face problems for this. See, this third paragraph is again is written wonderfully. Look at this one. To make teachers stay for long, school management should fulfill some of their demands and pay them for what they deserve, and they should be judged by their talent but not by their background or appearance, as we should never judge a book by its cover. Do you remember in the question, the last 2 points were all about this. The second point was what should be done to make teachers stay, how it will benefit the student. Here, there is a solution now mentioned in the third paragraph. Solution is the demands of the teachers should be fulfilled, or they should be paid what they deserve. They should not be judged by the appearance or background, rather they should be judged by the talent in the field of teaching. Now he has supported his idea with the proverb. The proverb is we should never judge a book by its cover. And then again justification or the relevant reason why the teachers should be paid what they deserve, why the teachers should be judged by the talent, not by the appearance or background. The suggestion that a student has given now is supported with the logical reason, the reason of how would it affect the studies of the students positively. It says it also benefits the students. Here it also benefits the students as they become comfortable with a specific teacher and take interest in learning. Now it says the suggestion that a student has given, that is paying handsome amounts to the teacher, fulfilling the demand, or hiring the teachers on the basis of their talents, not background or appearance, actually affect the students' studies positively. It also benefits the students as they become comfortable with a specific teacher and take interest in learning and enjoy their studies, but not thinking of it as a big pressure. Of course, do you remember that in the second paragraph discussed what are the adverse effects of high turnover? Now in this paragraph we are talking about if this suggestion is acted upon, there would be the benefits in the favor of the students, and that benefit would be actually that in the end the study would not be taken as a big pressure. The study would not be a big tension for the students. The course gets complete on time and students do not have to face problems for this. The last point in the question was how it will benefit the students. Here the benefit to the students have been discussed. Now the last lines are actually, these last sentences are the part of signaling the end. I request you to think about this issue and do take a step which you think is beneficial for the students. Here the requesting, thanking you. Yours truly, the complimentary clause. Here this is complimentary clause. Yours truly, yours sincerely, yours faithfully. You can also write and then signature. That's not the real name of the student. Another one response is the weaker response taken from the same Al-Khan board paper for e-marking section. You pause the video and look on this response. This response, there are so many flaws in the weaker response. Number one, the flaws in grammar, the flaws in language, the flaws in formats, flaws in solution of ideas, flaws in justification, flaws in punctuations, and flaws in connecting the ideas. You can pause the video and check the flaws here. That is a homework to you. Thank you so much for watching this video.